Hi everyone and welcome to the Spencer Lodge podcast in partnership with Najahi Events. Now, if you're into cryptocurrencies, then surely you've heard of Ethereum. Well, today is a very special episode because we have one of the co-founders of Ethereum joining us from Canada. Anthony Iorio is a Canadian entrepreneur and a co-founder of Ethereum and an early investor in Bitcoin, a claim to fame that not many people have. Since then, Anthony has launched the blockchain company Decentral and the Jaxx wallet. He has also served as the first Chief Digital Officer of the Toronto Stock Exchange. Now, despite the major financial success he has brought with him, Anthony made headlines this past year when he announced that he was quitting crypto due to the security concerns of high-level investing and a desire to focus his energy on philanthropy. Anthony joins me today to share his story, his decision to leave the crypto space, and hopefully give us some insights into what we can expect from him in the future. Cue the music, folks. We're going crypto. Anthony, thank you so much for coming to join us on the show today. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. For people that won't know who you are and really understand how a man like you got into the position that you got into, can you just take me back to, I don't know, let's go back to when you were at high school and finishing off there and what kind of things you were interested in and how that journey started for you.
Sure. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity here to speak with you. Let's go back actually even further till when I was about 8 years old. My dad brought home an IBM PC Junior. It was the first personal computer that I had. It was in the early 80s. I was born in 1975, so I think it was around 8 years old when he brought that home, and that really was a big marker in my life. Ever since I've been the computer guy, I've been the tech guy in the family. When you grasp onto something like that, for me, my parents started putting me into camps for computers, and it really was the thing that I leaned towards the most. That and sports growing up were kind of the two things. I played hockey since I was like 4 years old, and soccer about the same age, but it was really the computer coming home that day, and that was the thing that would be taken away from me when I wasn't being a good boy. But school wasn't something I really enjoyed that much. I never liked being told what to do. I was always just didn't like the concept of being told to do things, and that kind of is something that's to this day it's a common theme through my life and common thread for me. When I went into university, I went in for business. My dad was an entrepreneur. My dad was a creator, a problem solver, still is. The questioning of why was something that I think is really important in my life, and why is something like that, and is there a better way to do things? It's really the mindset of an entrepreneur, a mindset of an inventor, someone who likes to solve problems. And I think the two most things that to this day that I've realized that I want to be is I want to be a leader and I want to be a problem solver, and utilizing the skills I have in those two things in order to improve people's lives is kind of the thing that I realized that I want to do most and be in service of. But back then it was a marketing degree, business degree, international studies is what I did. I grew up in Toronto, just a little bit north of Toronto, in a little town called Richmond Hill. And, well, not a little, actually, it's a pretty big town now, but not as big as Toronto. And,
is that near Barrie?
Yeah, Barrie's actually a little further north. But yeah, it's on the way there, about halfway up to Barrie from Toronto. But I've always been here, and in the Toronto area, a little bit in the suburbs of Toronto. That's where I grew up. So again, not really. I went to university because that's what you do in my family. You go to university, you get a degree, you do normal things, and that's kind of something that never really lined well. And normalcy is not something that I strive to be. And I think it's the individualism and it's actually the creativity in individuals which is the most important thing. And I think I've always had never liked to be in a group mindset. I'm more of thinking that the individual is the most important thing, and as soon as you start putting people in groups, there's a tendency to lose the characters and qualities of individualism. And I think a lot today is revolves around these groupthink and mindsets and tribal states which have kind of come about. And yes, and it's always a contradiction. Maybe we want to be in communities, and I think the humans are meant to be in groups like that, but it's when attention isn't put towards individuals, I think, where things can start getting a little bit out of whack. So just the search for freedom was something always important for me, and again, it ties back to not being told what to do. After graduating, I went to work in the marketing field as a marketing director for a manufacturing company for a few years, and Realize I don't like marketing. I've never been really a salesperson that's trying to sell something or that wants to be associated with selling something for a profit without necessarily a motive that has a little more meaning. So I've always felt an understanding with marketing as a lot of it has to do with how can you convince someone to do something, and maybe not necessarily something that they want to do, but you have a goal to sell a product. And it was something that I realized marketing wasn't for me, and I had really only gotten to that field in business just because it was something to take at university, and I graduated, but it was never something that I really felt that I got the most amount of value out of going to university. And I settled down working in the family business in the 2000s, so the mid 2000s, 2003, 2004, up to about 2007, 2008. And the family business was manufacturing of patio sliding doors. It's a family business that my dad and his brothers and cousin had for quite a while. And I learned a lot of things on the entrepreneurial side there. I didn't want to get into computers in school because that's what I knew already. And I think being an entrepreneur was where things could get exciting. And I never wanted to be really a developer in terms of a coder, but I like to manage teams and would want to be able to run the project where I would work with those types of people. So in 2008, my dad and his brothers and partners decided to sell the business. And I had an opportunity there to think about what I wanted to do because I wasn't planning on working for the new owners. And I decided I wanted to do something kind of green focused and something technology focused. And I went into geothermal drilling. So this is the geothermal drilling not associated with providing energy in terms, but it's associated with providing heating and cooling for residential and commercial buildings and using the Earth's temperature and extracting temperatures from the ground in order to provide a much cleaner system for providing heating and cooling for different systems. So I bought this massive drill from Italy, and I did some IKEA projects with my drilling company in Italy, and brought the drill to Canada and started to do commercial projects and condos and things like that. And it was my first example of when kind of government started getting in the way with new technologies emerging and creating a lot of red tape, and it ended up leading to an industry that couldn't flourish because of the amount of roadblocks that were put in place to do these technologies. And they were already slow processes to do because of the drilling takes a long time, but the paybacks were really good for the buildings. And so it was kind of my first example there of, and around the same time, I was studying a lot of economics about what happened in the housing crisis and the financial crisis in the US at the time. And ran into this person called Peter Schiff, who was an economist and really a contrarian thinker and someone who believes in the Austrian School of Economics and free markets and his way of thinking. And Peter had predicted what had happened with the housing crisis and the financial crisis. It's been something that he had been going on mainstream news talking about and being laughed off the stage of, things are completely sound. There's no way that there's going to be a problem with it. And this is something just because of the way that he saw things and the way that he saw the economy and the way that he saw the booms and bust cycles associated with the model of economics, the Keynesian model of economics, leads to these things. And when you understand the way things work, it's easy to predict kind of what's happening. So I really started correlating that with my sense of freedom, being someone that really enjoys their freedom and striving towards being free. In that time and between the 2000s up to then, there's a lot of talk about decentralized technologies. We had file sharing programs like Napster and Kazan, different ones that had emerged, all with centralized systems, which eventually became things like BitTorrent. And so I'd known a lot about decentralized networks and systems prior to hearing about Bitcoin in 2012. But it really was a culmination of my first decade of life getting into computers, the second decade of my life really connecting with others via modems before the internet, and then when the internet came about, that was a big part of my life, and then getting into entrepreneurship, and then studying economics, which really was like a perfect storm when I heard about Bitcoin in 2012. I was searching for a more freedom-oriented podcast because I was listening to Peter Schiff's podcast every day and just really, really digesting and understanding this different way of thinking about economics and thinking about value creation and thinking about entrepreneurship. And I stumbled upon this podcast, and on the first show they talked about Bitcoin, and I had no idea what that was. And from that day forward, it's really I just immersed myself in it and wasn't sleeping for weeks, just digesting this and trying to figure out why for 3 years I hadn't heard about this thing that was starting to people starting to talk about. And it really was something I grasped, understood right away. And some of the main features that I took very quickly was these technologies are empowering people to be in control of their digital lives. It's giving them the ability to get away from the clutches of business models, which are centralized systems and with companies that kind of sit in the middle between individuals. And that as we move along, we're going to see more and more peer-to-peer systems where individuals can connect directly with individuals. And removing a lot of the non-value-added participants from the equation, or the very costly participants in the equation, like we see in finance or like we see in so many other business models and sectors. And I just grasped it right away, and it's very rare, I think, to see something, and especially in Bitcoin, you'll hear a lot of stories with people that heard about it and then dismissed it and then came back later on. Me, I got it just because of my background and the different things that I've been involved in. So after studying and learning a lot about it, I looked for a community in Toronto, and there just wasn't one, because over time you want to start connecting with others of something that you're interested in. And it was a perfect opportunity whereby with the internet, I was a little too young, just going through university, to really be able to utilize that to my advantage in terms of creating ideas and building. But this was a perfect time for me. It was, coming off of starting up many companies, coming up of the economics studying, which very much aligns with Bitcoin. And it was a perfect time for me to create a community that didn't exist. So I started the Toronto Bitcoin Meetup Group in 2012. At my first meetup, there was about 8 people. One of them was Vitalik Buterin, who later I went on to found Ethereum with, and was the initial idea behind Ethereum. A few other prominent people in the space, but those meetups ended up growing to hundreds of people, thousands of people. Along the way, I set up a national nonprofit called the Bitcoin Alliance of Canada to help in certain goals of bringing this technology to the media, working hopefully with governments to embrace the technologies, because I saw how powerful this was going to be. I equated it to what the internet did. This was going to do for value, what the internet did for information, democratizing it. So it was something I was very passionate about, and I thought building out a community and a network in this space was going to lead to major opportunities for me down the road. And eventually I was touring around the world and doing conferences and representing Canada as the executive director of this nonprofit that I'd set up, and then started building wallets. Very early on, I equated the wallet as the interface that similar to what the browser is for the internet. It's the way that people can manage and move their value and be in control of their own value. And I started building it and partnering up with a gentleman who was a developer, and we first started with an exit that we did, and then started building the wallets. And then Ethereum white paper was presented to me in late 2013 by Vitalik Buterin, who I'd gotten to know through the events that I was doing and by traveling and some of the work he was doing. And I validated by bringing in a gentleman called Charles Hoskinson, who I'd gotten to know, and showed him that paper. Another gentleman called Joseph Lubin, who operates a company called Consensus now, and of course Charles Hoskinson does Cardano now. But 8 of us, initially 5, got together as the founding team, and along with so many other people, got together to start Ethereum. And I funded it with the first exit that I did. I had the capital to keep it going until we raised from 9,000 people around the world $18 million to become the largest crowdfunded project of all time at the time. And that was kind of the genesis of me getting into that space. And now I run a company called Decentral. It's a tech software company that builds wallets and interfaces and infrastructure for this whole decentralized movement that connects people and empower people to be in control of their money, their communications, their identity. 3 things that I think are very important to be owned by an individual and not held in centralized systems by other companies that basically don't allow you to be in control. And that's kind of in tune with the freedom side of things that I've always been a big proponent of.
Wow. So in summary, I'm 5 years older than you. So in summary, I was racing around on my BMX after my mum and dad bought me a ZX Spectrum for Christmas, and I decided to park that because it was too much like hard work, and you decided to use your computer to learn, and we went on different trajectories. I'm quite good on a BMX though. Anyway, okay, so I understand that part of the journey, and it seems pretty logical as you think it through. When I kind of break that down, to me, one of the most important points must have been forming that group of people where you could get together like-minded people that you could talk about this subject matter that there was either ignorance, naivety, or no information to most of the public about. Was that was that one of those times?
It's many different things that have to come together. I mean, to me, through your life, you're building up tools, you're building up different aspects of things that can enable you to do things, and definitely community and building up a social network or building up a network is really important. It's one of those capitals that I say as part of your tools. You've got social capital, you've got wealth capital, you've got knowledge capital. All these types of capital need to come together in order for you to be able to be a creator and to build things. And it was definitely the initial decision to set up that group and then set up more groups and become kind of a center of gravity here in Toronto, and then through Canada, and then getting to know my network globally was definitely a major aspect of being able to be immersed with people that are like-minded and have different skill sets and different and similar philosophies, and come together and decide how you want to proceed, because that's where you're gathering information and understanding what trajectory you want to do. And for me, it was very clear that Ethereum was something that when Vitalik brought it to me and I was able to validate it, that this is something that I wanted to put my money into, my time, my attention to get off the ground, because what we were proposing was a platform that enables for the almost removal of middle layers and the ability for individuals to connect with other individuals using code and mathematics and contracts to execute systems that had to be necessarily be done in the past by large central authorities. And that's really was the premise of what we were bringing out, was the ability to look at business models or look at different industries and say, is there a way that technology can fill the gap here to provide more trust, more transparency? All these positive things that can emerge from it, and can it provide new ways for businesses to become more efficient? Can it become more ways to realize that the old ways of doing things maybe are only serving a few people? Can it democratize value to people, and can it make it done in a way that's open source and that people can build and create amazing things? And that's what we were able to accomplish, to the point that now it's in the hundreds of billions of dollars. Is that 18 million that we raised in capital has now turned into a market value of hundreds of billions, and it's really fantastic. I'm just very blessed to be part of what we did there, and a small piece of what we did there is what I was, but there's been literally thousands and thousands of people that contributed to take Ethereum where it is right now, which is second only to Bitcoin.
And when you look back on it and raising 9,000 people raising that amount of money, were you gobsmacked and surprised, or did you expect that to happen?
So it's part of a system of crowdsourcing. It's a bunch of different things you bring together, like gamification and crowdsourcing models, in order to get as many stakeholders in the mix as you can, is the way that I like to look at it. My kind of thesis is that if you can create winning solutions for as many people as possible, as many stakeholders as possible, that's how movements are created, of aligned people who realize that by coming together, their lives get better. And too many business models, and too many times in this world, it's the very few that are enabled, or the very few that can have the wins, and a lot of times it's not even at the expense of others. And it's business models in tech that I think are a lot like that. You have business models that rely on advertising, which I think is the main source that leads to misinformation. You have models of collecting user right information, which eventually ends up getting exposed or hacked from centralized systems, and people's information is out there, and that's used to monetize, and it's used to create other situations. So it's the deficiencies of models that I think that lead to a lot of the problems the world has. And when you can do things like create stakeholders of vested interest and get as many as you possibly can, and you're doing it in ways that are empowering people, and you're doing it in ways that people are aligned, it's a much better approach. It doesn't have a lot more of the fighting mechanisms. It has people coming together because everybody's being served. And that's really something that we tried to get into place back then. That's the reason we wanted to crowdsource, in order to get as many people part of the project as possible. And it's something that I do nowadays, even when I do my problem-solving models that I've been able to develop. It's really, how do you turn as many stakeholders into winning situations, and try to turn the world as a stakeholder in what it is you're doing, and try to get movements created of like-minded, aligned people that feel that by joining you, their life gets better. And think a little differently from the way traditional systems work, that maybe disclude too many people and lead to their change and disruption that happens because they haven't figured out how to create situations where more people are being served. And that's something that's really I'm passionate about, and it's something that I want to take my models to see how we can create better business models and situations to serve more people and to be of service to the world.
It's fantastic when you think about it. Take me back on that journey a little bit. Were there times that you went on that path where you yourself were really convinced about it? There was no doubt in your mind, but you had so much pushback and resistance from different parties along the way that maybe cast seeds of doubt in your mind, or maybe you thinking, is it me? Have I got this right? Or maybe I might have got this wrong. Was there any part of that happened to you?
Yeah, I think there's ups and downs in my life a lot. There's times that what strengthens you is the failures, and what strengthens you is the times where you maybe lose some certainty, or you're learning new skills, and you're embrace failing sometimes is always good, and every opportunity you have is a learning lesson, no matter how it actually unfolds. But there was these, you get these market swings in our space. It's been, being in since 2012, these ups and downs where you think you have the capital to do something, and then the markets turn drastically, and you've got to kind of change your mode to conserve more or do things. Or when we raised the capital with Ethereum, that 18 million actually turned into 9 million because the markets turned down just when we actually collect the money. So we actually only had 9 million to work with, than the 18 million at a certain time. So there were definitely times when you're like, things are changing, and we're such a fast-paced environment that things are always changing. In fact, if I had like one phrase for Ethereum, it was things change. Day to day, whether it be based on regulatory constraints, or whether it be based on legal constraints, or different things that emerge, you got to consistently be adapting and changing to the scenario. And we also had, at one time, 8 founders, and these were people that didn't really know each other very well, and getting decisions made from people that were from different countries and different backgrounds and different maturity levels and different philosophical beliefs was super challenging and very, very difficult. That just you have to constantly be changing and adapting, and there's times definitely when you're wondering, is this the right decision? Even for me to join Partners was something I'd learned way back in the day I didn't want to do, but it was such an opportunity there for me that it was sometimes you have to change things and say, okay, this can be so big, and I can contribute to this, and I know that there's challenges with this, and I understand it, but we got to go ahead and do this anyway. So definitely there's times when you're thinking, am I doing the right thing, or where do I want to go? And even to this day, you got to keep challenge yourself with those things. At least I do. The move to decide that I don't want crypto to be my full-time thing, and where I want to go in life is something that I'm constantly refining and changing, and it's a progression that I've been able to do, always in the positive fashion, I think, and taking my learnings and adapting, and all of it bases around how can I be of service to the most amount of people in the world is where I kind of have settled down. How do I do that? I use my problem-solving mechanisms to do that. And why do I do it? Is because it makes me happy to be in service to other people. So that's where I kind of sit right now, and the crypto space is a small piece of that for me. It's a tool in my tool belt that I'm good at and that I know, but it's not the be-all and end-all. And it actually has some issues that aren't so good to be in as well, due to the risk and security elements, and things like that are some things to take into consideration too.
I interviewed a guy called Meta Kovin recently, who's a crypto billionaire that in April bought the most expensive NFT. I think it was $69 million. Did you see that?
Yeah, is that the one from Beeple? The guy that bought?
Yeah, he bought. Yes, right. He bought Beeple. Yeah.
Yeah. So funny enough, he was part of a company called BitAccess. He was from Ottawa, and he sold me my first Bitcoin ATM, the second one in the world back in the day. So he was, I've known him since 2014. And then the funny tie-in is also I introduced Beeple to NFTs back in 2000 and, oh my God, like 3-4 years ago. And he didn't just get into it till actually last year. And he messaged me last year saying, hey, I'm getting into these NFTs. So yeah, I know the guy that bought it, and I actually know Beeple and had a tie-in to both of them. But yeah, there was a lot of money to be spending on a digital item that you could put up on your wall, and anybody could put up on their wall.
Yeah, well, I said to him, "Why did you buy it?" He said, "I had to." He said, "It was it was my duty to." He said, "I got into Bitcoin because when I first heard about Bitcoin, everybody was laughing at it, and I thought to myself, if everyone's laughing at it, there's got to be something to this." This was at a time where this kid didn't have any money. It wasn't like he came from a wealthy background or anything. He had nothing. He was using his buddy's laptop with his own USB stick to do his coding and stuff. And he said to me, "I had to buy it." He said, I'm so committed and so believe in the metaverse that I want to create a home for the assets that I've got in the metaverse. And then we started talking about the differences of opinion and people, even to this very day, they have around the whole crypto space. You've got some people saying, "Oh, I should have got in 10 years ago." And then you've got other people saying, "Oh, I can't understand it, so I'm going to stay away from it." And it's like, what we have to do is, rather than thinking about what's different about people, we have to try and think about what's similar. And if we look for things that are similar, then we've got something to build on, and we've got something to build relationships with, and try and give people a better understanding of what's going on. I think to this very day, well, no, I know. I tell you what, I did a post this morning in my car driving back from the gym, and I said exactly this. How many of you have been saying on social media that you wish you got into cryptocurrency 10 years ago and you didn't? Well, now you're seeing the next wave, okay, and you see something called NFTs, and you're not investing in those, and that's right at the beginning of that journey. So what is it? You just want to be able to moan about the fact you didn't get into something early on, okay? Or, okay, are you going to go and get stuck into this stuff now? I just find it really interesting, the psychology of human beings.
Yeah, and it's like learn about it, like at least get the knowledge about it. Maybe not even in take the dive into it necessarily, but at least learn and try to understand it and speak to other people about it. Maybe to get because it's about understanding, and a lot of stuff in our space is very difficult to grasp. So if you haven't maybe learned about Bitcoin even, and now getting in the NFT space, it might become even more challenging. So I think it's just about a matter of just trying to understand things and then deciding how to get involved, maybe if it's something that you're passionate about. But yeah, I mean, I try to encourage people to just learn, and hopefully get trusted sources of people that you can listen to that are going to be able to help you in your journeys, whether it be in this or any other topic, really.
It's interesting, you know. I had a guy called Josh Riddett on the show, and Josh has got a business called Easy Crypto Hunter. He's a crypto miner, but a lad from Manchester, working class lad from the north of England, sat and just explained things for dummies, basically. Made it really simple to understand. And the amount of people that came to me afterwards and said, now I get it. And I think it's almost like some people believe there's a secret language the crypto world speaks to keep them away from understanding. But I think if you're absolutely right, to take time to learn and really learn, you know, what's the worst thing that can happen? You get a bit more educated and you decide to stay away and go and buy another buy-to-let property. But if you know, it's the worst thing. If you do, then you can see the wonderful possibilities that are coming our way with how this technology is moving us on.
It also needs people that are going to be able to break it down, as you said, in ways that are digestible by a large swath of the population, because it's very easy to go online and just have people get lost in things that they don't know what to believe, and it's very challenging in that sense. And I try to break down what I think Bitcoin is. The greatest thing that it brought us is for the first time ever you can have something digital and it can't be duplicated. That's really kind of sums it up, is for the properties of money, it has to have certain qualities like scarcity and fungibility and different things. And if you can create something out of nothing and duplicate it, which is what digital brought to the information age, is the ability to create an email and send it to someone else, a digital copy, and it's great for that. But when you're talking about money and you're talking about anything before Bitcoin failed because you could create a digital copy of it, and Bitcoin introduced a system where you couldn't create a copy of a digital item. And then I could send that digital item to you and I don't have it anymore, and I know that the digital item is fixed and limited supply and it has a utility and value, and it's not something that has banking hours, and it's something that you can send globally to anyone around the world. And when people are accepting it and they realize that it's less friction and it's easy to use because the infrastructure is being built out better, that's why it's been picking up, and it's really because of that major thing of creating a digital asset that can't be duplicated. And then you have NFTs now that are digital assets that can't be duplicated, but they're also non-fungible, which means that like a dollar, you have 100 cents, and each cent is worth every other cent. It's fungible. That's another property of money. With an NFT, it's a unique individual collectible kind of thing. So you only have one of it, and that's what makes even more scarcity to it. So NFTs are giving the ability for people to create these scarce, unique, collectible items and allowing creators to be empowered to be able to let's say monetize their artwork or monetize their music, or there's so many different things that are now people are being opened up due to a technology that Ethereum brought to market with NFTs, and now the NFT space is getting super hot. And again, you're going to have now situations where maybe it gets a little overheated, and you're going to have it try to figure itself out and really see where the value is, because that $65 million thing it's an image that I can just put on my wall, but I don't own it. And I think it's about some people have that. They want to own it. It's a collectible. Now, I'm not into collecting things really, but some people are. So I'm not going to spend $65 million on something that I can just take a picture of and put on the wall. But people love collectibles, and this is what it's kind of opened the door to, and it's really empowering creators with the ability to now start monetizing or start figuring out ways and avenues that they didn't have access to before, maybe because there were larger centralized authorities that were kind of controlling things. And you see what's happening with the streaming platforms, with the Spotify's, and you end up with these business models sometimes that people aren't being served, and people start saying, hey, I'm not really feeling with what I'm creating here, I'm really getting what I should be. And these technologies are starting to open the doors to that.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the byproducts of people kind of learning about it is that they start to learn about real money. They start to learn about the dollar. They start to pay attention to, when they hear about the dollar being reprinted and more currency being made available, and they start to learn about the impact of inflation, I think for a lot of people they're very naive to that, and so this has brought in a whole new understanding of what's actually going on with money. And it's like, hold on a minute, I didn't realise that before. Now I know that. That sucks.
That's why something is double more expensive than it was last year. That's called inflation there. And understanding the history of money and what makes sound money, and these are all the things that I was studying with economics before I got into Bitcoin. Was, what do you do with this solution where governments can print and print and print and create inflation, and now what you have is worth less, and what happened in the past when paper dollars way back when were realized that if it's not backed by something, and with Bitcoin it's backed by mathematics, it's backed by the technology, that you know how much there will be in the future and you know how much there is now. But with traditional currencies and government currencies, after Nixon took the US off the gold standard, has been more of a situation where governments can just print more and more, and that leads to a lot of the booms and bust cycles that we see. It leads to this inflation and leads to these things. So yes, definitely people understanding more about the history of money and understanding what money is really important, I think.
Yeah, I think another couple of things that are gonna change. I mean, we can see the exponential growth on that, so we can understand that. But I think when El Salvador did what it did and brought the currency in, it made a few people raised an eyebrow. I don't think it was enough. But it raised an eyebrow. But I think when Nigeria and Zimbabwe and some other countries start to take this currency, because their own currency is almost non-existent in terms of its value. I think when you start to get a number of countries, the dominoes go, and all of a sudden I think it then becomes something that people can no longer ignore or put to one side. And when it gets to that state or that place, I think you're going to have no option but to learn about it, really learn about it. And I think that for me is the time.
Agreed. Definitely. Yeah. It comes about because of the deficient systems that are in place right now, and people understanding or thinking that there's a better way to do things, and this is where technology comes in, and technology a lot of times helps to fix problems. It also leads to problems as well, but I think in this situation, people are understanding that they're not happy with what they've got, and here's an opportunity, and as more testing grounds come out, I think it will lead to a snowball effect.
It's interesting, I find that there's people have really short memories. There's many examples over the years of banks going bust and people losing their money. Now, I know in the US you have your FDIC approved. In the UK we have something as well which protects some of the money. But in some other countries, whether that's Cyprus after the crash, my parents live in Cyprus, banks went bust there, Greece, Russia, other Eastern European countries, it's happened. The bank goes bust and whatever you've got in your account's gone. It's like gone. They have very short-term memories over remembering that. But they'll all remember, well, hold on a minute, what happened with Bitcoin or cryptocurrency recently. That company went bust and this happened. And hold on a minute, it was hacked. And so you've got to be careful. It's like, well, hold on a minute here. Let's just have a look in history. Let's have a look at what happened in the past. If you see what's been going on, it's not too dissimilar. Shit does happen from time to time.
Yeah, and things have value. I mean, banks have value. Banks came about because people were concerned about their safety, and they felt by putting it in their money somewhere else, they can kind of pass off that safety factor. They're not walking around and getting robbed every day. So banks do have a service. So it's not black and white, and even you have the debate in exchanges, and you have self-custodial wallets, which is what I build. But I'm not a believer in really the black and white. There's a lot of gray area in between, and there's different choices is what's great to have choice. So it could be very well someone that owns a lot of Bitcoin may want to say that I'd rather my money be in a bank maybe because it's safer to have someone else guarding it for me than me being in control of it myself. So it's educating and understanding the different options, different choices. But I do like it that there is different options and choices out there.
Talk to me about why you pulled away because of security concerns, because that was big news last summer, wasn't it? It's that you coming away from it, and a founder of Ethereum is coming away because of security concerns. That's what the red tops will say. There's a story behind it, but the red tops will say that, and everyone will go, what does that mean?
Well, I mean, you're limited in what you can put in a headline, right? And it's shown time and time again that headlines are in the models to make money for advertisers and media. It comes down to how can I create that sexy headline that's going to get someone to open up that message in order to read something and see the advertiser. That's the model. So more and more I find, unfortunately, but it is what it is. There's headlines that maybe don't capture the whole statement of the actual truth. And there could be 15 reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing, but that's not going to be listed in the headline. So I think particularly the one publication went down that journey, and even though that wasn't the main reason, they maybe did that for other reasons, the editor, in order to get more of more people opening up that news article. So security is something that's always been, that I've been aware of. The tools we build empower people to be in control of their money, communication, and identity is the way I like to say it, but with that becomes a lot of responsibility as well. And you are becoming your own bank. So you can imagine that it needs to be something that people consider, that when they are their own bank, there's certain other people that might understand that and recognize that there's potential ways there to try to extract that from someone, and that your money is not safe in a bank because you are in control of it. So it's, again, back to the double-edged sword type of thinking. It's not binary. There's a lot of gray area. And for me, what do I want to do in this world? I think I've talked about it. I want to be a leader that solves problems, and I want to use the models I have to solve problems in order to tackle larger things. And it's not about the be-all and end-all being crypto. So it's a small part of what I am. And the more I'm associated on that side of things, even in my company, we build wallets that don't actually hold customer funds. Like, we never take custodianship, but we have billions of dollars that are being managed in our product by our users, and each individual user has their own keys. So there's no centralized server that's storing all of these keys. That's the way we develop the software. It's each individual device of our user has the key on their device, and we don't have it. So, but even in that sense, there's still ways to potentially, people try to cause harm, and it's just not at the time and age and that I would want some issue with my family to be kind of dealing with. So my idea is, I want to solve bigger problems, and where I want to use crypto to where it makes sense might be a possibility, but in general, what I'm good at is solving problems, and what I want to showcase is that these problems that are being solved don't necessarily even need crypto a lot of the times, but it just needs better way of thinking of things. It needs better principles, tools, and processes to carry it out, and that's more what I want to bring to the world. So the shift was kind of a notice that there's more to me, there's more to what I want to focus on, and there's always progression, and there's always evolution. And that evolution for me is to serve more people with what I'm good at, and that's solving problems that make people happy and improve people's lives, and that's where I want my attention to go. So there was a number of different reasons, and if you put it down to percentages, maybe it was a smaller percentage that was to do with the security aspect. More is to do that I want to do greater, bigger things that may go beyond, that will probably and will go beyond Bitcoin or crypto, but might utilize that as needed if that's required in a certain solution for what I want to work on.
Okay, good. So let's talk about philanthropy then, and talk about that in conjunction with philanthropy. So what kind of projects have you seen that have caught your eye, you've got involved in, you've started to identify there's a problem, and you're able to make a difference? Share some of those with me, please.
Sure. So some of the projects I'm involved right now, sustainable food. I was investigating getting involved in Formula E, which is the Formula, the electric racing league for
Yes.
Formula One.
Yeah.
Just the understanding that the biggest thing that I really attach to is business models, and the deficiency of current business models, and how I can have an impact to create better business models that lead to more people being served than just a few. And any sector to sector right now, you've got a few people, whether it be these gatekeepers or platforms that use systems that month after month have to bring money back to their investors. And generally it's done at a squeezing level where people are not thought about as how can we serve 100% of the population? How can we do things that are going to provide wins for more people? And a lot of times it comes because there's not enough problem solving mechanisms in place to be able to think differently and think, how can we create more stakeholders that have more wins for what it is we're doing, rather than, let's say, we're only serving 10%, which is ourselves right now, and 90% of the world are not really aligned with what we're doing. And then month after month, we've got to keep changing things, whether it be in the food space, worse ingredients, or using ingredients that are cheaper because you're able to get more profits out of it. But in time, that comes back to bite you on the ass. So my passion is really, how can we look at business models and do things differently? And with my company, when we started back in 2014, we have principles. Our principles that we never want to hold or have access to user funds. I don't want to be a custodian. I want the user to be empowered to be in control of his own money. So we're going to build the tools that empower people, not use business models that take, whether it be their information or whether it be a custodian of their money, and then have to protect it in ways, and use business models like advertising or user collection of information to monetize. And that's where so many tech companies have gone. But it's led to a lot of the issues that I think the world has today. Advertising models are basically, I think, lead to a lot of the misinformation and spreading of fake news around the world. I think it's because advertisers are attracting unsophisticated people down journeys and paths and rabbit holes for some type of usually monetary outcome or gain, or to create a tribe of people together that can carry out a mission or goal that they're trying to. I think it's a massive problem. I think it all ties back to the business models that have been utilized that lead to that. And these tech companies that say, well, this is all we know. We don't know how to make money. We provide a service and we expect something in return, which is usually either people's information, which eventually could be sold or it could be leaked, or it's eyeballs on advertisers' ads. And the more we can get, we don't care to really be seeing what's real, what's not. That's kind of leading to this tribalistic state, this us versus them mentality that's arisen. And I think there's a movie called The Social Dilemma that kind of brings that really to the forefront. I equate a lot of these models to how I saw the banks and finance back in the day, 10 years ago, with these gatekeepers or these people that are not thinking differently and thinking how to serve more people and thinking 5 years ahead. If we continue to do this, where are we going to be 5 years from now? And unfortunately, a lot of these models have gotten into positions where they can't change those models, but it's causing harm. And I kind of see a lot of tech these days and a lot of tech companies as kind of the antiquated models, these kind of legacy systems. And I really would love to bring forward better ways of looking at things using my frameworks. And it's pretty simple. It's how do you identify as many stakeholders as you can, and how do you figure out how to create winning situations for more people where they feel like by them joining you in your mission, their life gets better. It's basically do things that are serving more people, because the more people on your side, the less friction you're going to have, the less you're fighting. If you can figure out ways to create wins for your competitors and present them with something that we're all winning from here, isn't that a better approach than to say, let's try to destroy these guys and take them out of business, and then you create enemies? So my philosophy or my way of doing things is really to kind of bring people together with the ultimate goal of creating movements of aligned people towards objectives and goals where we feel like everybody's being part of this winning situation and we're not excluding people. And really it just takes more leadership and problem solving and thinking. And this is what the crypto space is so good at. The creators and people in our space that have developed projects such as Ethereum's, Satoshi with his thinking on creating Bitcoin was about recognizing that there's an underserving amount of people here, and technology can come into play meshed with principles and meshed with new ways of doing things to create better solutions for more people. And that's what we've been trying to achieve for a very long time.
Have you ever thought about going into politics?
Yeah, I've thought about it, but it's not something I can see myself doing. I'm happy to. I love working with people that can maybe things that I'm saying have value.
It's people like you saying what you say and believing what you believe are the people that become change makers. And the trouble is
I want to be like, change making is one thing, but also being able to inspire people in terms of leadership roles where potentially it's getting to children. It's understanding how do we create better leaders and problem solvers right from very early on. That's what I want to be inspiring and doing, to create the next generation potentially of politicians, the next generation of leaders, is something that I like to do. I'll never dismiss saying I'm not going to do this, but have I thought about it? Yeah, I have, and it's not the point in my life that I would want to be doing something like that right now. My mission and goal is to build case studies right now of using my formulas and frameworks in order to look sector by sector and be able to create change that inspires Canadians right now. My goal is to start local and then think global, and what can I do here in Canada to assist with taking what we're good at here, which is we're super multicultural. We have so many people that have come from all over the world that have different skill sets and different things, of something that a lot of other countries don't have. That Canada's that melting pot here. We also have a humbleness to us, I think, that helps us to say, let's share what we've got with other people, rather than we're the best and we want to control and keep it all together here. And I think it's those aspects of things that I'd like to, and we have other issues and problems that need to be dealt with here, but I'd like to be a catalyst for working with Canadian companies and sectors here that we can eventually create great frameworks to take to the rest of the world. And that's really what I'm inspired to do. Is I think I can take my models, and it's a general problem-solving formula that I go through on any sector, to come up with better solutions for things. And I kind of want to build my case studies to be able to get the credentials of what I've been doing, and I've already done it with things like Ethereum and what I've done with Decentral, and coming up with different business models that work without creating the complications and deficiencies that normal ones do. to be able to put together packages where we're feeling I can create more jobs here or help to create more jobs and better industry, and then take what we've learned to the rest of the world, because it has to be done in stages too. So politics I have thought about. My brother was a politician, but I think for now I'm on a mission to take my models and be able to showcase what I can do with them, and in ways that I can hopefully create better value and help people and assist to kind of grow Canada right now, and then with the eventual goal to how that can take on the world. So.
Absolutely. It's interesting, when there's businesses that compete with each other, and then there's times of panic or times of setbacks come in, and they start to talk to each other and find ways forward. You see that aviation industry is probably a good example over the last couple of years. They're all at each other, and then it's like, right, we're in the shit together now. Maybe we should have a chat. Is it interesting?
Let's take that even one step further. But then it's also realizing that doing that in a way that's not just going to work for yourself, but how do you do that in a way and come together that's going to work for the greater good? So there's a lot of times you may see those groups that are going to start forming in a protectionist mechanism in order to protect their industry. But if they can also think, well, how do we come together to not just protect ourselves, but how do we do things that are going to bring more people on board with what we're doing, to create more allies in what we're doing? And I think that's the next level of thinking. Not just let's come and figure out how we're going to work it ourselves, because sometimes if you can do things that are going to help more people, they join you on your mission, and then you have these massive movements that can get created there too.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's an undertaking, but an undertaking you've demonstrated that you're more than capable of pulling together based upon what you've achieved so far in life. Are you proud of what you've done?
Yeah, I can say I am. I can say that I'm also, like anybody else, I go through struggles, and I go through times when I feel like I can get overwhelmed with what I'm taking on and what I'm doing, and I need to, my last few years have been, how do I create that consistency of wanting to do the things I want to do to create the massive amounts of impact in the world, but also being able to stay in a good balance. It's all about maintaining balance. I've learned things over the years that really helped me out. I'm a very early riser. I'm up at between 3 and 4 every morning. I go to bed super early. I need that time in peace and quiet in the morning. I do my meditation. I really have time to by myself to really be in my head and be mindful. And that helps me when I have a very busy and hectic day that I got to keep underway. But there's still challenges and times where I can, as the world can kind of take over things, and you start slipping from your daily schedules and things, that you can be overtaken, because we're constantly being bombarded with information. Our brains were not equipped to develop as fast as technology and information has been, and it's very challenging. And this is leading to a rise in different mental conditions and health conditions for people, and that aren't able to keep that balance. And that's another area that's really important to me, is how do we ensure that as the continued growth of stimuli that is hitting us exponentially grows, and how are we maintaining people in the minds that are going to be able to keep that balance? And I think it's a massive problem, and another one that's very, very dear to me as well. And so yes, I'm proud of what I've done. I'm still always challenged with how can I do the things greater that I want to do, and the fear sometimes of I gotta slow down a bit with that, or else I'm not going to be able to get to where I want to be, and I'm going to have to do a reset. I'm going to have to do these things. So yeah, it's challenging, and I'm always trying to figure things out like everybody else, and learning and adapting and changing. But I have to be proud of what I've done, and you have to be, or else it's that mindset that I do. But I'm always trying to get better too, and I'm always trying to figure out ways that I can improve and be better, and have better communication with people, and be a better leader and grow.
Do you practice gratitude?
Yeah, not as much as I should, and it's definitely one of those things that I put into my morning routines. But I do think someone whose mindset is really about being thankful for everything that we have. And if you look at it from that perspective, and some of the people that I really look up to are always the people that I'm like, hey, how are you? I'm blessed. I'm so grateful for this, and grateful for what I have. And it doesn't matter what it is they have, what they don't have. It's that mentality and that state of mind that I think with more people having that gratitude as their main thing, and it's something that I'm working on, and I do know that it's something that I'd like to continuously be improving. But I do have it, but it's not where I fully would like it to be.
And do you feel sometimes that you've got the weight of a lot of solutions to a lot of problems on your shoulders.
Definitely, yeah. That's a daily thing. Is the more you try to
does
do,
that hold on. Does that then create anxiety or depression or both?
Not depression. There is anxiety that I have dealt with. Staying balanced and staying, as I talked about, with the hours that I can be to myself and doing the meditation I do, and really slow down is the main thing. Slowing and being present with things. You can't do it all the time because you got to be thinking about what's going on. So there's got to be a lot of thought that goes into the future, but it's about how much of, you are what you think. And it's how much you can do of something in order to keep you in that state where you feel you're not getting into a level that's kind of overtaking what it is you're doing. So I need a good 4 or 5 hours a day in order to keep that balance, right, to take on the day. And I try to stop at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. From then on, I'm in bed usually by 8 o'clock, 7, 8 o'clock. But at that 4 to 6 is kind of the time to just veg and do nothing for me, because I have a very active mind. And the problem solver mind is consistently asking why with everything, and it can get a little bit out of control sometimes with that. And that's where the times to yourself where you can be in the present, and in the time where you're slowing down and noticing your walking and just noticing your motion, because everything, or a lot of what we do, is automatic. You're automatically getting into the car when you open that door, and you're not thinking about it. You're thinking your mind's generally on something else, but the amount of power it takes to actually think of everything that you're thinking somewhere different, and to think of what you're actually doing, like to be very present, is something I try to have as a percentage of my time in order to keep my balance from the other things I need to think about of what I need to be doing in the future to piece together this, because that's what problem solving is. It's piecing a lot of things together, being able to take things in and take it to many different levels. And that's the thing. The more levels you can put to, if I do this, and then this happens, and then I need to get to this end game, but it's about getting to where I want to be. That can be, takes a very active mind, and that's something that I have. So there is times of anxiety. There's times of the more you do, the more people are reliant on you, the more relationships and connections that you have that you need to deal with, the more you need to think about it. But I'm happy with my balance right now. I try to keep it with there. I notice when I'm slipping and what I need to do to correct that. And that's where I think I've done a lot of improvements over the years.
I think it's really important that people hear there's a human behind the person. And I think that a lot of the time we just think about, it's very easy to slip into saying your name and thinking about your background and thinking about what you do. And even as you lean into wanting to solve problems from a philanthropic perspective, to forget there's just a bloke in there somewhere, okay? And sorry, I'm English, we say that word, but there's just a guy in there somewhere that has his ups and downs like everybody else. I look at the things that I do, and I've got a number of different businesses that I run, and don't get me wrong, they're all fun, but the thing that keeps me the most grounded and the thing that I enjoy doing the most is this, exactly what I'm doing right now. I get an enormous amount of joy out of talking to people and learning about their stories, learning about what they do, and it's almost like I'm watching a good Netflix documentary. Even though I'm in it, that's what it feels like, and it gives me a chance, and that's why I like to do them in the evening here in Dubai, and you guys over in the US and Canada and whatnot are perfect timing for me, because I can come away from that and I can sit. I'll have a cup of coffee afterwards and I'll reflect and it gets me into that place, and I just feel so grateful because I get the chance to talk to people like you. So it's interesting how it all works out.
Well, and what you do brings this to a lot of people, which is great too. You're getting to speak with some people that are going to give many different perspectives and many different ideas to people. So what you're doing is fantastic, because you're getting it out to a large group of the population that are then getting to hear from so many different people, and it's that knowledge and learning that's going to help people, I think, to make their way in life. So you're doing a fantastic thing, I think, putting this together as well.
Thank you very much indeed. I know we're running out of time, but I just wanted to finish on a couple of last questions. When you look at the problems that exist in the world, and so many of them that are there, for me, I have my niche. I don't want children to be trafficked. I want to try and do my bit for human trafficking, and I know that it's a bigger industry than the blooming drug industry. I know it's a monster, but I have this calling to want to try and make a difference in that one area right now. Is there one thing that matters to you the most right now that you're trying to fix? or you think you have a good chance of fixing in one particular area?
I think my focus is on I run my company right now. The idea is to capitalize or utilize what I've built over the last 10 years in this cryptocurrency space of building infrastructure, tools, interfaces to connect to these decentralized technologies is what I've been building for the last long while. It's to sell that company and to be able to maximize it in a way that I can then give back to, because I don't take outside capital. I funded everything I've ever done. I don't like to be beholden to others. So it's to take that so that in the greater initiatives that I want to undertake, which is the problem solving of determining the problems that I want to tackle, which is still to be determined. Okay. It's developing it's continuing to put, I have a white paper, a paper coming out on my, what I call perfect formula, which is my brand that I'm utilizing for the problem solving framework that I'm going to be bringing out. So the idea is to build the case studies. Once I've sold the company, my focus needs to be on I have a duty to what I want to do for the company right now, but then be able to create a model where I'm assisting in developing better business models and better solutions to a lot of the problems that exist using my frameworks with my principles, tools, and processes. And I don't necessarily know exactly where I'm going to go into that's going to have the most amount of impact, but I think it's developing that whole system in place so then I can kind of go from area to area or sector to sector and be able to create gradual improvements in those areas towards, again, more people having winning situations for more stakeholders that aren't being served right now in those particular sectors. So I would say that I need to work on my company. I need to then develop the framework and decide by data that's being here of what are the largest problems that need to be worked on and solved. Getting that data, sorting it, and then deciding how I'm going to tackle it with the frameworks and bringing people together. Like I have a space in Toronto that I'm calling like the Justice League, the headquarters of the Justice League of problem solving that I'm building out. And it's literally a space to be able to get my superheroes of problem solving together and descend upon problems using my frameworks to be able to tackle it. So that's what I'm going towards, and I'm the champion that's kind of taking it through the steps and the stages and deciding which problem we're going to start tackling, bringing in all the superheroes that have certain tools or assets or certain powers in areas to help me to put together it, and then coming up with a better solution. So it is philanthropic initiatives. What I'm doing in the future, I want to disassociate myself with the profit motive, because as soon as you bring that into play, a lot of things I'm trying to tackle lead to the problems because of this profit motive that exists. So for me, I want to showcase as a leader and as someone that wants to solve problems that I'm going to disassociate myself from things that have to do with potential outcomes that might lead towards profit in what I'm doing. And that's where the philanthropic thing that I really want to make sure, and that's the trust level I want to build with people and showcase that what I'm doing is for being of service. And that's really my goal, is to serve using the problem solving that I've been able to put together.
You're one hell of a guy. I tell you that right now. You're one hell of a guy. And you've done some great things, and the mission that you're on, I genuinely applaud. Fantastic,
Thank
mate.
you.
Genuinely fantastic. It's really commendable. I've got nothing but respect for you.
Thanks,
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a big round of applause to the awesome Anthony Iorio. Wow, what a guy. Anthony Iorio, what a guy. You think about it, one of the co-founders of Ethereum, the man on that mission, what he's trying to do now, what he's trying to achieve, how he's trying to make the world a better place, and that just oozes out of every part of him. And it doesn't matter how much money you've got, how much success you've had, no matter how much you've built, you're just on a mission to try it and make the world a better place. Well, that's a mic drop moment from me. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. If you're listening to this on iTunes, then do me a favor, leave me a 5-star rating. If you're listening on any other podcast app, please leave some love, give us a follow, let us know that you're enjoying the show. The more people that do that, the more that we will get reach on this podcast, and the more people can benefit from this wonderful content and these incredible guests. I will see you on the next episode of the podcast.